Hello and welcome to today's broadcast of In the Tank Live with Aaron Hairston and Keith Deyo. And the topic of talk today in the tank is about how the world will always treat you how you treat you. And the reason why that's so important is because we are getting a direct reflection of what we're putting out. And so the our world is literally a mirror. And we get confused about why certain things are happening the way they are. And it simply is because the world can only learn from what you teach it. Right, Aaron? I mean,
What up, man?
what do you know about that topic as the world will always treat you how you treat you? Thanks for that message today. Listening to that video with Nellie Anderson and just getting a great reminder of, how important it is to treat yourself the way you want to be treated.
Yeah, no, it's huge. And we talk about our eyes being a window into our soul and into our hearts and into who we are. And if you don't like what you're seeing on a day-to-day basis and you don't like the feeling that you're getting from the culture that you've been surrounded by, then a big part of that is going to be you and what you are treating you to be each and every day. And so looking at yourself in the mirror is going to be such a big eye-opener, right? And being proud of yourself and being significant to yourself and understanding the value that you have within you is really the most important thing you can set off in any day and every day, before and after you wake up and you go to bed every morning. So that's a huge topic, and I would love to see more of that, right? Not only coming from us, but also coming from our friends and our families and our children, right? Because just seeing our children start to see the cause and effect to their attitudes and the way that they look at themselves in the mirror and know that they're important is going to make their day so much better. It's going to help them to feel really proud of who they are and really start to fall in love with themselves, because that's really how your environment's going to treat you, is how you treat yourself. So that's a huge topic, Keith.
What was that, Aaron? I just dropped back in.
Right on, right on. No, I was just talking about how our eyes are a window into our soul, and how with being able to duplicate that with our children and our families around us and helping them to identify their own significance, right? Looking themselves in the mirror and say, I love me some me, and the world will treat you the same way. And so it starts with you, making that declaration to yourself and saying, I am important. I am value. I am someone that's special and that I'm going to provide for others what I've been gifted. And so that's
Yeah.
where it has to start.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, Aaron. And a lot of it starts with forgiveness. I mean, how many times,
Right.
do you beat yourself up over something that, you can no longer control? Or I think Les Brown talks about it. He makes a really good point, and he says, stop prosecuting the person you are today for the person you were yesterday, right? If you wouldn't make that same choice today, then why are you still beating yourself up over it? Move on, forgive and forget. And so it's huge that we forgive ourselves on a daily basis until we completely forgive and forget what that issue was, or what we were, complaining about, or criticizing ourselves about. Because if you stay in that state, then you're staying in the state of victim, and you're living in fear, you're living in loss. And that we know, and everybody that's been on these broadcasts know that doesn't serve you. It's really going to hold you back from serving someone else. So it literally freezes you if you aren't able to do that. And so if the world sees you beating yourself up constantly, it's going to give you back more of that beating up, right? So if you want to stop getting beat up, you have to first seek inside, right, for the forgiveness, and then the world will stop throwing punches at you, right? I think that's so important, and we constantly do that, right? I'm a victim sometimes. I wake up, man, I'm like, whoa, what's going on?
Oh,
And I
yeah.
have to search inside,
Yeah.
like, why am I having these thoughts? And I have to remind myself with a phone call or action or physiology that, let me get out of this state. I don't know how I got here, but I don't like it, and I
Right.
do
It
possess the
doesn't
power to
feel
get out of
good.
it. Uh-uh.
Right.
Like yesterday
Right.
for us, and I really feel for the people in England because they experienced the weather we got yesterday. They have that almost every day. And it was like it was classic. It was cloudy,
Miserable.
gray, raining.
Yeah.
It was cold, it was
Yeah.
windy. And I found myself getting stuck inside, and I was nodding off. I think I even nodded off for about an hour yesterday, maybe even more. I'm like, what am I doing? It's the middle of a Sunday.
Yeah.
I never have a weekend off where I'm just home.
Right.
What am I doing?
Right.
I had to say,
Right.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off, get out, go change my
Go do
physiology.
something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then I started feeling guilty because I wasted some time or I took a nap or I just rested because nobody was home. And those are some of the things that if especially if you're affected by weather that you have to be very aware of and get into action before it happens, right? Because if we
Right.
don't get into action before it happens, then we're going to get stuck. It's a trap, right?
And I tell people all the time, like jump on the floor, do some push-ups, man, do
Yeah,
some body squats, get the blood flowing. And I love how Lisa Nichols says it. She goes, in order for her to change, right, she had to be okay with leaving how she used to do things. And that has been one of the biggest eye openers this morning, and just listening to how she said that, because a lot of us will look back at the way that we respond to certain situations and say, well, that's how I always do things, or that's how I've always done it. And that's why we've always gotten the results that we've gotten. And so if you want to move into a different direction, you're going to have to change your standards, right? You're going to have to change some of the things you used to value into some more significant things that are going to reflect the new you and what you want to represent. And reading is huge. I think reading for me has been such a resource of looking into someone else's life. I read a lot of biographies. I read a lot of successful people's books and listening to their language, all the way to listening to the interview of a professional athlete and how they respond to a win or loss and the questions that they're asking. And so you're listening to someone experiencing something, and I work on being as present as I can as I listen to that information, because the more relatable that I can be with that information, I can find the value and I can move forward with it. And I can upgrade. I can upgrade the things that I used to do with new methods, because I know that me, right, the individual I am, is going to need some point of references, right, when it comes to those challenges and the obstacles and the things that I want to achieve, right? And so I need to have that reference point from something or someone who's done it. And so if you're looking at your environment, which I do on a regular basis, I like to do a checks and balances and say, okay, well, how am I showing up each and every day? And is it providing, right? Or is it withdrawing, right? Is it withdrawing or is it depositing? And so I'm constantly checking, balancing myself, and I'm doing that because I know, right? I know if I want more, I have to give more. And so I just keep reflecting on some of the experiences that I've read, some of the stories that I've heard, and just making them more relatable with my life so that I can look at how I will respond to get better results, and so that the outcome in my world and what I see on a day-to-day basis is pleasing and joyful.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you want more, be more. I mean, that's all we that's all we ever say. And I
That's
love the
it.
fact that in that video that Lisa spoke about, she talked about how most of our energy is sucked up protecting, proving, hiding, and defending. Those things are the things where we spend the most energy. And
Yeah.
all of that figuring out, all of that worry is crazy for our brain. It sucks up so much of our time, energy, and it's effort. You have to put effort into it. And that's
Yeah.
really something where we noticed an exhaustion from a lot of people. I was once there. Brain chemistry is such a fragile
Right.
thing that
Yeah.
if you get it right, you will feel like you're on fire all day long. You will feel like you're 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And it's that little tip, that shift in brain chemistry that is so tied to nutrition and then to your environment, that if you can control that, if you can work on that piece and just forgive yourself and release what you're protecting, what you're trying to prove, what you're trying to hide from somebody else, and what you're defending, if you can release those things, you will have so much energy at the end of the day that you'll feel like there's been more time given to you. And I think where that's a lot of people
Mm.
is they would love to serve more. They would love to find an area where they could grow and they can contribute, and like you and I have done. And it wasn't that we got given more time in a day, right? It's just that we're spending our time that we have differently, so that we're focused solely on quality. And we had to train ourselves to do that, to be focused on quality. And when you're here, you're here. And no matter
Right.
what's happening and no matter when you're going to get somewhere, that's where you're supposed to be. And we stop
Well,
beating
Keith, it
ourselves
starts with
up.
vision. But
Right?
it
Yeah,
starts with
well,
vision,
clarity, right?
right?
You
I
have to have
mean,
that clarity.
we have to start with what we think about on a day-to-day basis, right? And so if we continue to think about the things that we do in life, right? If we continue to think about the things we do in life, we're going to get caught up in those things, like you said, right? Defending and protecting and getting involved in those individual things. But when we start to cast that vision for ourselves and start to say, okay, you know what? Where do I see myself next year, this time? What would it look like? What would I like it to look like? What things do I want to have around me? What people do I want to have around me? And you start to just really focus on those things, and you talk in a way of of imagination. And it may sound crazy at times, and trust me, that's where that comfort uncomfort starts to happen. And I notice myself doing that, and it feels good, right? I mean, if you talk to a child, right, you'll start to
Yeah.
find where that element, right, that element exists, and that's where they have the most fun, right? Because they can be anything and anywhere, in a split second, right? And they're allowing themselves permission to do so. And so what I started doing, and I do it every day, is I remind myself how important it is to cast a vision of what the day is going to look like. And I'm not talking about the things that I do. I'm talking about the results, right? I'm talking about the end of the sentence, what it looks like, right? And for some people, I can understand how it can be challenging if you never did it. But just start by start by, what is my afternoon going to look like? What is my morning going to look like? How would I like it to look like? And what will that feel like? And there's a lot of studies that go into visualization and how powerful it can be in creating the way that you show up in that time. Right. And so how you show up at 9 a.m., how do you show up at 10 a.m., how do you show up at 11, and at lunchtime, what does it look like for you? And as you start to do it, the coolest thing happens. I've experienced some really laughable moments,
Yeah,
and
I
how
love
it
it.
ends up resulting, right? Isn't it crazy? And I'm like, holy smokes. And it's almost like deja vu, right? I mean, we call it deja vu, but what happens is that, we've actually put ourselves in an imaginary state, and we start to think about it, and we start to create it. Because honestly, the windows of our eyes into our soul is no lie, and it's so powerful. And then when you become more practice driven, and you start to say, okay, every morning I get into my routine, I put my Les Brown on, I put my TD Jakes on, I put my whatever on to get my mind set. Because what I heard on a video, and I think Tony Robbins said it, he goes, whatever you do within the first 10 minutes of waking
Yep.
up is going to be what your day is going to be fueled on. And so knowing that, right, knowing that no longer is ignorance an excuse, right? I can no longer say, I didn't know, I do know. And so if my first 10 minutes is something that I'm smiling or laughing or saying yes to, then I know that the rest of my day is going to be a struggle. And so I make sure that first 10 minutes is taken care of. Right, is taken care of by feeding my brain and some thoughts into a visionary state to say, what do I want my day to look like today? It may rain outside, right? But inside of me and how I feel, it feels like this. And this is how I want it to see it. And this is how I want to feel it. And you know what? It works, guys. It works so well. And so that's what I've been doing. And I encourage everybody to start doing that, man. Just start using your imagination more.
Yeah, Aaron, and it's funny. If before I really found personal development, I would wake up and let the world happen to me. It was just I thought
Yeah,
that's what I signed up for, right? I'd let the world happen to me,
right,
and I would just get really good at responding to it. And so I used
right.
uncertainty differently, right? I let the uncertainty that I was addicted to, the uncertainty that drives me, right? The variety that I'm looking for, I let the world
Yeah.
determine what kind of variety I was going to have that day. And now when I wake up, it's like I have armor on, right? The armor that I receive is the message that I'm open to hearing in a certain way that it makes me feel, so that when I get up,
Yeah.
I'm way up, and I feel a certain way, because I know that what makes me full, when my buckets are getting filled throughout the day, it's me being of service, right? But being of service to myself first, knowing that I'm the most important person in this equation. And that's not being selfish. That's just being guided. That's just
No.
being that's having clarity. That means you have purpose, right? So serve
That's putting your
yourself.
oxygen mask on.
There you go, right? Put that mask on first. And so what I found is
Yeah.
when I do that, and when things can work in that order, then it acts as armor, because when I step out into the world and I'm ready to serve, everything that doesn't serve me, it just bounces off. It's like being bulletproof, like ping, 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 right? It doesn't
Right.
matter what message I get. If I do it out of order, I notice that I don't have all my armor on, and I'm susceptible to the
Right. You're
world
like, oh, oh,
and
that
what it does
hurt.
to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that one hurt. Like that
Yeah.
message I got back
Yeah.
from somebody that totally misinterpreted what I was reaching out to them for, that kind of hurt. And I started second guessing myself. What was I doing? I started protecting myself and my reputation. I started finding that I had to prove that, I was worth it. My message was worth it. I started to figure, I'm like, oh man, well now I must have to hide something so that that doesn't happen again. And I started defending my message, and I don't have to defend anything. I know that when I wake up, I'm full of intent, and my intent is
Yeah.
to show up and serve. My intent is to grow
Yes.
as an individual, become the best version of
Yes.
myself possible on that given day, and my intent is to always in a place where I can contribute more to the environment that I'm stepping into than it had prior to me being there. I'm going to show
Yeah.
up and I'm going to be a giver, not a taker, right? I'm
Yeah.
not just going to show up to constantly what's in it for me, what's in it for me, what's in it for me. And so I know when I do those things and they're in alignment that I feel a certain way. And when I feel a certain way, I'm at my best. And when I'm at my best, people win. People around me, they all win. And they all feel that way. And so that's really what
Well,
I
you
found is
give
a
them
system.
permission, right? I mean, you
Yeah,
give them
absolutely.
permission because they're seeing what you're doing, and there's no difference between if you have children or you don't. The environment that you're around, you're going to influence one way or the other, right? And so we've been created, and I put the Lord in the middle of everything I do, man. I pray more than I've ever prayed nowadays because I know that surrounding me are a lot of people that don't have permission because of their own self-belief, right? And how important they are. And I pray so much for other people to really see how valuable they are. Because once people feel valuable, right, they show up in a whole different light, right? They're
Oh
really
yeah.
bright and they're willing to link arms and really form like Voltron. And it reminds me of that cartoon. And when a big challenge came about, all those lions came together and they
Yep.
formed as one big unit, and they were able to conquer whatever it was. And so the same thing goes in life, right? If you show up, right, the best version of you, and what I mean by that is meaning that you believe in you 100%, regardless of your situation, financially, emotionally, it doesn't matter, right? Every day is a brand new day, and you can choose how you show up every single day, right? And so, start with the intention of saying, I am valuable, I am important, right? I am going to walk into this next room and I'm going to make an impact and allow everybody else to be valuable too, right? And show that belief. And when you start to do that, just like it influences our children, it's going to show up in everyone that is linked arms with you, and there's something's going to happen. The energy is going to shift. And so that's the point that we're making here today, is that you are an impact and a direct reflection on what you see in your environment. And if you don't like what you see, then start by changing you first. Start by changing your morning first and finding out where you can upgrade that. How can you improve the way that you're thinking, the way that you're feeling, right? So that you can show up in a different light to influence others and give others permission. That's all it's about. And me and Keith, man, we have so much fun doing that. And I'm talking to everyone out there because it's so important that today is Monday and I want you to feel the most valuable because you decided to look in the mirror and say, I'm important. That's what's important right here.
Absolutely, Aaron. And so we always leave everybody with a tool. We have these so that we spark the imagination. We show up, we fan the flames. And so we've created a certain level of awareness now today that the world is going to treat you how you treat you. And so if we can forgive ourselves, then that would be the first step. Forgive yourself and move forward. Then where we found out how to do that in the morning was a book called The Miracle Morning. And there's different miracle
Woo! There you
mornings,
go.
right? There it is,
Yeah,
right? The Savers system,
yeah.
SAVERS, and you can even get that format if you just put S.A.V, all the way down, and you Google that acronym, you're going to get a form that shows what those acronyms are and how to set your morning up for success. They actually made one for network marketers, for real estate agents, insurance. I mean, there's different ones, but there is a generic miracle morning, and that's really what I suggest and highly recommend you get started on, because it literally is more important than breakfast, because what you feed your mind is what you're now going to feed on for the rest of the day, and setting yourself up for success. And remember this, as we leave you, all of your success is going to be found on the other side of service, right? So all of your success is going to be found on the other side of service. So who are you serving? Show up, serve, forgive yourself, and remember, like Paxton said, he made a good point there. He wanted to reiterate Aaron's statement of, I am valuable, I am important. Give yourself significance so you can serve others and allow them to be significant too. And with that being said, I want to thank all of our live viewers for their comments, for the likes, the loves, and to all of our hundreds of thousands of people around the world that are going to view this message after today or after it's live. I want to remind you that please leave comments. We will get back to you. Ask any questions you may have, and we will see you tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time on In the Tank Live with Aaron Hairston and Keith Deyo.
Let's go, people.